Welcome to another episode of Rebecca and Rebecca. And we are here to talk books. And I'm Rebecca Reed, and this is my friend and partner, Rebecca Yager.
How's it going,
So we
Rebecca?
are here in this spring month to
Yes,
talk about Paula Peckham's book, Protected. And you have the blurb, right?
I
So we
do.
can kind of get into it and find out a little bit more about this
Yeah,
story.
let's hear about the book and then we'll talk about it. Okay, this is Protected by Paula Peckham. It says disaster strikes a wagon train en route to Texas, leaving 18-year-old Abby in charge of the survivors, all children younger than her. After an attempted kidnapping, the others convince her to disguise herself as a boy. Initially reluctant, Abby soon realizes life on the trail is much easier without bulky skirts. I think I would agree with that. The disguise allows her to do things as Abner she couldn't do as Abby. It's intoxicating. Disfigured by fire as a child, Manny, a young cowboy, is lonely and yearns for companionship. His scars and the judgment of townspeople make it difficult for him to trust others. He intercepts the wagon train and agrees to help the children finish the trip to San Antonio. A new friendship cracks the protective walls built around his heart. Hope blooms when he meets Abner, and Manny's fear of rejection slowly dissolves. As the weeks on the trail go by, Abby develops romantic feelings for Manny, and he values his first new friendship in years. When Manny discovers her deception, it destroys the fragile bond of friendship growing between them. Can God help the two young lovers find trust, faith, and forgiveness on the hot Texas plain? As a side note, this is book one of the San Antonio series. All three books are out right now, so that's exciting. This is Protected. Book two is called A Father's Gift. Book three is called Accepted. So let's talk about book one and see if we can get people interested in all three of them. So,
Yeah. Well, I'm interested in all three of them. I've only read the first one, but so when you listen to the blurb, you think, oh, wagon train story. This is not just a wagon train story. As a matter of fact, the wagon train part is kind of the least important part in a way. I mean, it's important because it sets the stage for what happens, but there's a lot more that goes on beyond just the whole traveling on the wagon train. And if that's what you're thinking, stop, because that's not how it is. This book is way more than a wagon train story. Just put that out there.
right. And I'm Westerns usually aren't my genre, and I enjoyed this far more than I anticipated. Of course, I live in Texas. It takes place in Texas. It could be that. I know Paula, the author of this book, Paula Peckham, is also like a fifth or sixth generation Texan. But no, it's very good, and it's not just about the wagon train. Like you said, the wagon train sets the stage for why Abby has to dress like a boy and starts the deception, and then how Manny and Abby work through that. I think with Manny and Abby, they're both in disguise because Abby's disguised as Abner, and Manny hides because he has disfiguring scars from a fire, from burns and stuff. And they're both, through their disguises, are trying to find their identity through this whole story. And I thought that was really interesting, um, especially
I
for a
Yeah.
Western, it's a not typical back and train story.
No, and kind of just to back up a little bit, the reason that Abby is in charge is because disease, took out all of the adults. And so she is 18 and doesn't know anything about much of anything except, I mean, she's learned some healing skills. She has some basic skills, but as far as like any of this being in charge of a wagon
Mhm.
train, no,
Yeah.
this is all new territory for her. And she only just sort of inherits the job because she's the oldest. There are a couple of boys who are near her age. I think they're maybe a year or two, three younger
Brady,
than
I think
her.
15 or 16 is the next
Um,
oldest boy, and he does take a lot of responsibility too. They work together, but yeah, she is the oldest, and everyone looks to her. Um,
and she has to handle all of these young children. There's a couple of really young girls that are um, very typical. They want their mother and they don't want her, and so she feels that rejection. Um, there's a lot. I think it does deal the whole story. The one of the themes is, how do you deal with rejection, and
Hmm.
um, how to step into maybe your true self a little bit, and that the theme is carried through. And there's bad people, there's a lot of people who help in various ways. So there you've got good influences, you've got some bad influences, you've got conflict from a lot of different things, like doing new things, scary things. Um, she dresses as a boy. She finally agrees to do it because it's a safety issue. And she ultimately wants to keep all of these people safe. She feels responsible for them. And so she does it just as a because it's safer that way.
Hmm.
And then she ends up finding out, what it is to not have these restrictions. And so that opens up a whole new world for her in a
Yeah,
way.
yeah. Um, and once Abby is free from the restrictions of the clothing, she's a hard worker. She wants to
Mhm.
learn. She eventually embraces kind of the role of being the leader, even though she was thrust into it in a way she never wanted to be, of course, um, with the passing of all the adults in the wagon train. So she's actually quite impressive, and really you almost watch her mature through the whole story,
Yeah.
from where we start out at the beginning to where she ends up.
And she has a lot of determination. I
Mhm.
mean, she doesn't lack any in determination. And I think maybe loyalty is her next big quality, because I think loyalty pushes her to accept the role of leader. It pushes her to go along with the scheme to become this boy Abner. Loyalty pushes her to claim the land that her parents wanted to claim, the reason that they were coming to San Antonio in the first place. She didn't have to follow through with all of that, but she does, for loyalty for the memory, to honor her parents' memory, and just a lot of things. Plus, she didn't really know what else she would do, so she goes out there and she does. She works super hard, and she has to learn things, and and she has to find out things, and she is rejected by Manny when he finds out she lied to him, and he rejects her. I mean, I don't think that's a spoiler. I think it's already in the blurb, and so it's like that whole situation then, because that's the part that you don't get a whole lot out of the blurb, is the fact that once they get to San Antonio, I mean, the first part of the book is just getting there, but once they get there, there's a lot left of the story, and it has to do with them, Manny working through some of his issues and her working through hers, and then how are they gonna come together? I mean, it's a romance, so we already know from the get-go that, they're gonna get together, but all of the stories surrounding how that happens, that part is really fascinating, and all the little pieces working together for that. So it's much more than a wagon train story.
Yeah.
It's much more than a Western even. I mean, this story, you could take these themes and
Mhm.
set them in a lot of different time periods and still have a really good story. Just as this is the way this one is told, and it really works well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you could put the elements even in a contemporary story, and it would still work. Um, I like the extra characters. We cannot discuss this book without discussing Manny's grandmother, and I don't want to give away any spoilers, but Yai Deli, the abuelita of the story. And there always has to be a voice of reason and a voice who sees what her grandson can't see, or even what Abby can't see. And she's kind of funny as she just goes about her day, but how she really helps them um, find their way, as they're working through their own, like I said, identity crisis and things like that with
She's got her own little, like, agenda in there.
as most grandmothers do, I think. Hmm.
Yeah.
So, but she's really fun, adds the levity. The kids are really great that were on the wagon train too, and help grow Abby up as well as she cares for them. And you watch, I think Grady is the 15 or 16-year-old that, and even watch his maturing
Mhm.
throughout the book. So
Yeah.
I think I really glommed on the character arcs in this and the growth and what Manny and Abby, but even the side characters the other
Mhm.
kids had to go through, um, as they settled in San Antonio.
Mhm. Isn't Manny has a brother too, doesn't he? Does Manny have a brother? Manny has something.
Well,
Somebody.
besides Jonathan, his best friend.
I
So,
thought so. I don't remember. I apologize. I took a lot of notes on this book because I read it early. I had time, and it's been a while. But the thing that I'm remembering is he ordered too much seed for his ground or something, and there was somebody there helping him. Maybe it was Grady or one of these kids that was on the wagon train. I can't remember
or
now.
was it Jonathan? Because Jonathan is Manny's sidekick, the best
And
friend, and
see,
they're
reader, listeners, you guys are going to have to go and read this book and then comment on this and let us know what we're missing because I can't
that's
remember.
terrible. That's terrible. Come on.
There's so many good pieces to this story.
Right.
All the different things that they learn and just as a part of think about a person who's never farmed before and then going out, this is Abby, going
Hmm.
out claiming land and having to break ground to plant seeds and all of that kind of stuff. It's like, think about that. How would you handle that? And this girl is 18 years old and dealing with that. So
And
and it just
tenacious.
the author, Paula does a great job of just getting us into her head and her feelings, and she has so much faith in God,
Hmm.
and that's
Hmm.
where her strength comes from.
Hmm.
And we see that throughout, that she doesn't lack that.
Yeah.
And that really is what carries her through from one piece to the next. That's the continuity,
Hmm.
that enables her to have that growth arc because she just trusts him and does what she has to in order to honor the memories of the people and keep things moving forward for
Right.
everyone.
Right. Yeah, the faith element in this book is strong, I think, because um, you know, the Abuelita has her faith and her beliefs. Manny is struggling because of what he's been through
Mhm.
with his scars and things. So he's struggling to find his faith again on that. So I liked it, but again, it wasn't in your face preaching for those who feel like we
Oh
can
no.
stuff the lecturing down our throats. No, it's a realistic way. People pray to get through and how they
Mhm.
lean on God to get through the tough times. And it was just a great illustration of how your faith can play part.
And it has some tense
Yeah.
moments. There's some very tense moments, and I like that the learning that Abby does as Abner
Hmm.
um, comes through in the end to like help her resolve some really serious situations that happen toward the end. I also like that the villain is kind of follows through too.
Yeah.
There's sort of a set of antagonists
Yeah.
that follow through um, the story, and that's really fun too. Because I think a lot of times we end up with, I mean, a lot of different antagonists, which is fine.
Hmm.
Those kind of stories are fine, but the way that this one is works out, these things just kind of keep popping up,
Yeah.
and eventually it's dealt it comes down to like a showdown if you think
Yeah.
of it in Western terms. And so if you do like Westerns, there is that
Oh
type of
gosh, yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, the villains, the antagonists are nasty.
Yes, yes, they are.
But but they, and you have to face them head on, and it's well handled well. It's well done
Mhm.
on dealing with them, and for again part of Abby and Manny's growth. Um, so yeah, so it's good
Mhm.
Western, but good characterization, how they grow. So the characters are deep, they're nuanced, a lot to them. And then the romance is sweet as it plays
Mhm.
out. These are young people, and they're learning to trust themselves, trust their feelings, and trust, is this what God has for them? And so yeah, I ended up I really loved this book. And again, as someone who does not read in that genre very often, I was pleasantly surprised. So it always pays to read outside your preferred genre, because you'll never know what you're going to run across. You're going to run across a gem like this one, and I think
Yeah,
it's a
that's
gem.
true. Yeah, I really enjoyed this book as well. I'm just like Rebecca. I didn't know how much I would enjoy it, but I ended up really liking it, and I definitely want to continue with the series.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's worth. And since all three are out, there's no reason not to pick up the San Antonio series
Right.
by Paula Peckham. We are going to be talking to Paula to learn about her Texas roots and her writing, and what she's done. She's also was a fellow teacher, Rebecca. I don't know if you knew that, but
Oh, I didn't know that.
she does that. So we will be talking to Paula on April 24th. So come back and check with us. And I think it's going to be a fun Texas-sized conversation. I had to throw that in. But much more than Texas. Paula's really interesting, and learn more about this series. So yeah, highly recommended. Protected is the name of this first book by Paula Peckham. So, anything else? Are we good?
No, I really liked it too. Yeah, so I definitely recommend it, and I'm looking forward to talking to Paula because it'll be fun to learn how she came up with all of this and what she's got coming up next.
Yep. Well, that sounds great. So therefore, join us on April 24th, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
Bye bye.